going to get started. So good afternoon, everyone. I want to mention that anyone who needs ASL, if you would go to the interpretation button and click on American Sign Language, Christina, who is going to start off interpreting, you'll see her pop up directly onto your screen. So it should be easier to see her and also have the presentation on view. If anybody has any problems with that, please send me a chat. Okay, yes, Mindy, great. So, okay, so it seems like that's working. Everything is good with the interpreter. Perfect. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm a family resource specialist for early hearing detection and intervention with Parent Information Center of Delaware. And I just want to mention a couple of things aside from our interpreters, Christina, who's going first, and then Amanda. We're also going to send you a survey at the end of the presentation. So if you could take a moment to fill that out, that would be greatly appreciated. And then we are going to have time after the first presentation for a Q&A and a discussion. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand and I will try to unmute you so that you can speak. But feel free, if you have a question during the presentation, you don't want to forget it, just make a note of it in the chat or in the Q&A, and I promise to get to it so that your questions can be answered. And now I am going to introduce our two speakers. We have Kerry Thompson. She is the Parent Training and Information PTI Project Coordinator for PIC. And then we have Dr. Elizabeth Cole. She is a Special Education Coordinator in Newcastle County and has been in special education for 18 years throughout Delaware. So I'm going to turn it over to Kerry now, and thank you all so much. Kerry?
Thank you, Ariel. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. As Ariel said, my name is Kerry Thompson, and I am the Parent Training and Information Project Coordinator at the Parent Information Center. So today we're going to go over IEP versus the 504 plan, and by the end, you'll have a better understanding of each plan and which is right for your child. The Parent Information Center will be celebrating a 40th birthday next year. We are a nonprofit organization that provides tools for parents, caregivers, and advocates of children to secure appropriate education and related services. Our mission is to improve the health and educational outcomes for children and youth by empowering them, their families, and the professionals who serve them. We support our families as early as prenatal through post-high school and adulthood. We do this by one-on-one consultations. If you're having a problem or have questions about your child's education and or their ability to receive free and appropriate public education, parents and caregivers can give our office a call to schedule a consultation. Learning opportunities such as this one. We also have webinars, information on our website. We do outreach, and we work on system advocacy as well. Before I start explaining each plan, I want to provide a brief overview. Each plan falls under a governing law. Under the IEP, the law is the Individual with Disabilities Educational Act, right here. And Section 504 plan falls under the Civil Rights Rehabilitation Act of 1973. As far as eligibility, to be eligible for an IEP, the student must have a disability that requires specialized instruction to access the curriculum. And for a 504 plan, a student must have a disability that affects the student's ability to access the curriculum. The evaluation process for an IEP requires an array of data: assessments, medical history, educational history, classroom observation to determine the eligibility. For a 504 plan, there isn't the law doesn't specify an evaluation process. However, many schools might use the term evaluation process to determine the eligibility. All right, we're going to start discussing the IEP first. Okay. What is an individual education program? It provides individualized special education and related services to meet a child's unique educational needs. It's a written document to meet the child's educational needs. It lays out the program of special education instruction, support, accommodations, and modifications. The disability must affect the child's educational performance. Here's the life cycle of an individual educational program. The team, the participants, they collect data, they identify the needs, they address the needs, the present level of educational performance, they develop goals, and they monitor the progress. It starts with the team. The team comes together to perform the assessments based on the team's concerns, which is the collecting data and identifying the needs. The IEP team will address the needs and the present level of educational performance, which is how the child is doing academically at the moment. They will create goals, and the goal progression will be monitored throughout the year. Okay, collecting the data and identifying the needs. They'll review what your child's strengths are, what your concerns, the academic needs, the functional needs, and that will all come together. Under IDEA, here are some of the categories a student can qualify for an IEP. The use of data collecting and identifying your child's educational needs is used to determine the IEP category. This is an educational classification, not a medical diagnosis. And each classification has its own Delaware state regulation guidelines that need to be met in order to qualify. And there's a big misconception that if you are diagnosed medically with autism, you automatically qualify for an IEP with an autism classification. The disability must affect the child's educational performance and or their ability to learn and benefit from general educational curriculum. We plan to have a webinar diving into autism medical diagnosis versus autism educational classification in January or February. So keep an eye out for that if you have more questions about the separation of the two. So we've collected the data, identified the child's needs, disability category has been identified. Now the IEP needs to address the needs. This is where related services, supplement aids, and services come into special education. The needs that are addressed are: what does your child need to reach its goal? What does your child need in order to learn? And what does your child need to participate with other children? Present level of educational performance, which details how your child is doing academically at the moment. It is based on the unique needs related to the child's disability. It must be current, accurate, and measurable to understand. It is the baseline from which future progress will be measured. And keep in mind, the IEP progress reports are not your report cards. They tend to be sent home along with the child's report cards, but they are not. And if you don't recall ever seeing these quarterly reports, you could reach out to the school and request a copy. Okay, the IEP goals and progress. IEP goals are set using the present level of educational performance, and the IEP goals progress reports are sent home during the year. Okay, least restrictive environment. So special education is not a place. It's special education provides services. The question is, where is your child receiving these services? It is the school's responsibility to provide the least restrictive environment. The goal is for the children with a disability to be taught with all other children, provide supplemental aids and services in general education classroom, only remove children to a different classroom if they cannot learn in the general education classroom. We spoke previously about related services. Here's a list of some supportive services to assist the students meet their goal. And here's how related services are offered. For example, if a child needs speech and language services, it will list speech and language services. It will state the type, whether it's individual, group, consult, the frequency of the service, the duration, and the location with where it would take place. Here are some examples of supplement aids and accommodations. Before we go into the 504 plan, just wanted to review some ways that we could support this process of the IEP. If you don't have an IEP yet, but you think you might need an evaluation, which is the collecting data aspect of this, we have a resource of more information about the evaluation process, as well as requesting an evaluation, how to go about doing that within the school environment. We have a template letter. And also, if you already have an IEP or 504 plan and need some assistance when it comes to preparing yourself for your meetings, we have this IEP team meeting planner, which has been a fabulous document for our families that use. Okay, so now the 504 plan. Under Section 504, schools are required to provide free and appropriate public education, which is FAPE, to all children, regardless of the nature or severity of the disability. Students who qualify for a 504 plan are those who have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Here are some of the major life activities that are included, but not limited to. Performing manual tasks like walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, and working. The main purpose of Section 504 is to provide FAPE for students with disabilities in K through 12 public schools. FAPE stands for Free Appropriate Public Education, and under Section 504, appropriate means providing support to give a child access to the same education as their school age peers are getting. It prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in programs and activities that are getting federal funding. What does a 504 plan include? This is a personalized plan and varies based on individual, accommodation, support, and services for your child. Here's a brief list of some accommodations. And remember, accommodations are how a student learns the material. Most don't realize that students transitioning into college, technical training, or into the career are also entitled to protections under Section 504. At these levels, the 504 plan that was created during the transition is not a binding contract, but is a stepping off point for conversations about appropriate accommodations. Each of these locations should have an office or a staff member that is responsible for ensuring that those with disabilities are appropriately accommodated. The importance with both plans are communication with the school. Ask questions, be open to information, understand your end goal, and know your rights. If you're looking for communication support, this is how PIC can help. We create a culture that includes and lifts family voice. We provide opportunities for meaningful family engagement, active listening, modeling, and opportunities for families to learn their rights and make decisions about their children's learning and development. We do have offices in every county. So if you do require one-on-one support, if you have questions about your child's needs directly, feel free to give us a call. My email address is also right down here. You're welcome to email me. But for now, that's an overview of the comparison of the two plans. So I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the moment and open it up to any questions.
Let me see, there were a couple of questions. Thank you, Kerry. Okay. Is there a citation for the Civil Rights Rehabilitation Act of 1973? I'm familiar with the Vocational Rehabilitation Act of 1973, but not that one. That was our first question.
Dr. Cole, is that something that you would like to answer?
The Vocational Rehabilitation Act is what primarily everything steps off from. They're both kind of collectively called the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. If you see it that way, it was updated somewhat in the 90s, but it's basically the same thing referred to as the Rehabilitation Act.
And how are the protections to families and students different between an IEP and a 504?
They really aren't. The rights of the parent and the student are the same in both cases. The main difference between the IEP and the 504 is the IEP has goals that are being worked on every marking period, and a 504 is more of just the accommodations. So the 504 has the accommodations that the child is entitled to, but the IEP has actual goals that they're working towards, monitored by a special education teacher or a related service provider. So the protections aren't any different though.
We have a lot of great questions coming through.
Yes. Okay. Let me see. There's any other ones that you want to put in the chat? And I think I saw one other one. So how will you know if your child is making progress? Is this stated in both the IEP and the 504 plan?
It's explicitly stated in the IEP in that it's broken down into benchmarks by marking period, and you receive a progress report every marking period. The progress isn't as explicitly stated in a 504 because there's not those benchmarks that you're working towards, but that would be a conversation with the general educator or the special educator in the classroom working with your student, and they should be open to that communication at any time.
And what about the requirements for reviewing each plan, annual versus periodic?
I need a little clarification on that question. An annual, both should be reviewed and updated annually. I'm just not sure. You can call an IEP meeting at any time. So it can be called at any time, or if you want to update the 504 at any time. I'm not sure if that's what you meant by periodic.
Okay.
I believe that is what it is, how I interpreted it. Yeah.
Okay.
And a couple questions about children being a part of the team. Is my child a part of the IEP team? And then similarly, what about the 504 plan about a child attending or a younger adult attending a 504 plan?
When a student is on a transition or a secondary transition-based IEP, which starts in 7th or 8th grade, the year that they turn 14, they are considered a member of their IEP team. They're invited to every meeting. Sometimes parents choose not to have them attend if they feel like it will negatively impact them in some way. But once they are in middle school, they're invited to their IEP team and also to their 504 meetings. Same thing.
Great. And then if there's a program during the summer sponsored by the school and a child who is deaf or hard of hearing needs interpretation services, can that be requested through the school, through the district, if it's a program that's taking place over the summer?
That would be a request that would either come to the special education coordinator or the 504 coordinator for your building. And that would be something that would be provided.
Okay, that's great. And then I actually have a personal question to throw out. So my daughter is deaf and uses cochlear implants to hear, and she has been on an IEP until recently and switched over to a 504 plan, but she is so used to getting services from her IEP, seeing a speech therapist and a teacher of the deaf, and even and other services as well. And it kind of abruptly stopped once the 504 plan came into place. And I'm sure that other kids or parents and professionals who have children in similar situations have seen this happen, where they have a lot of services and then all of a sudden they don't. Is there a way to transition children off of an IEP onto a 504 in terms of the services that they receive? Because my daughter is actually disappointed that she doesn't get to see all of these friendly faces anymore. So that's my long-winded question to you.
It's actually really common that occurs. I was just talking to my office mate. Her daughter has an IEP and switched to a 504 this year, and she's feeling a similar sense of just missing her people. What I think would be there's not a formal process for that, in that it's something that I could promise to everybody, because both of these programs are so individualized. That's what I forgot to say. That was going to be my disclaimer. Everything is so individualized to the kid and the family. But what I would request as the parent is a more formal transition to kind of wean off the services, instead of just abruptly going from seeing somebody weekly to seeing somebody bi-monthly. That is something that your school should be willing to discuss and plan out with you, maybe a gradual lessening of services. And they should still make those people available at certain points during the transition, just so the students don't feel abandoned and lose any of the progress that they're making. I'm sorry, I don't know if that helps, because there's not a cut and dry answer, but that would be what I would suggest.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for answering that. I want to ask if there are any other. I don't see any questions that I had missed in the chat. Does anybody else have a question for our speakers, or if Kerry and Dr. Cole, if you had anything that you wanted to add to the presentation that you think would be good information, please feel free to do so while I wait to see if anyone has a last minute question.
The only thing I wanted to add, and it piggybacks off of what was in the presentation, is communication is 100% the key. Sometimes we don't know what a parent wants unless they express it. So don't be afraid to start that line of communication, get the ball rolling. We are so willing to work with you, but we just want to work together as a team and keep those lines of communication open.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off of that as well. I mean, it is very, very important. Most of the time when we receive our calls with parents needing support, a lot of it could have been resolved on their own if they just communicated, if both sides just communicated a little bit better. So don't feel shy or hesitant to reach out to the school, to ask questions, to understand the process of what steps they're taking. And that's it. I mean, the school, everybody's here to help and support the child. It's just a matter of getting there and understanding the best way to get there. So communication is absolutely important.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. That's why I'm in my office every day.
Yep.
Okay, Dr. Cole, I have a question. There has been pushback for adding a needs page without a goal. Have you had experience with that? Having hearing loss isn't a goal I would work on because I cannot change the hearing loss. But districts will say you can't have that. Accommodations are for the entire school experience, not just for their writing goal and class time.
That is something that I have seen in various districts. Like I said, this is personal to me, but I have still been using a needs page without a goal. Because like you said, for something like hearing loss, we can't necessarily, like, it's not a goal you're working to overcome per se, but you still need those needs there. It's not exactly the same as a writing goal or a reading goal. That's an area where you just need to do it like that.
Thank you. I don't want to make sure everything has been answered. And one more question for you. What happens if you disagree with your IEP or 504 plan? What would next steps be?
That's where communication comes in. I actually had a situation this week where I sent home a draft IEP and the parent just was not feeling it and was not happy with it. So she sent me an email, and I gave her a call last night and we talked it through. I mean, we were on the phone for about an hour, but we came to a resolution where I'm making some amendments to some things that she suggested, because she's as important of a team member. The parent is as important of a team member as me as the special education director or coordinator, as the teacher, the special education teacher, the general educator. So I listened to that feedback, and it's been revised and will in the final document, because the draft document is what you're working off of, but then you'll get a final document to sign. So there's always room for improvement and modification until that final document is signed. Sorry if I got tongue tied on that one. I'm sorry if it didn't make that much sense.
That was perfect. Thank you.
And I just
Ariel, if
wanna
I could, go ahead, Kerry.
And I just wanted to add to that too, is that, that's what PIC is here for. If you're unhappy with it and you're not sure what direction to take, you're not sure what your options are, give us a call. That's stuff that we can navigate too. We can also work with the school on your behalf and bring both sides together to help come to terms as well. So.
Thank you, Kerry. Suzanne, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think something that's really important to remember is that both the IEP and the 504, the parent, like Dr. Cole said, you're a team member. So it's not that the school is writing it and you have to just accept what they give you. It's about writing it together and working together to find the best solution for your child.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right, because we're on the same team and we all want what's best. I think if anybody else has a question or a comment or would like anything to be discussed, I'll give it another minute or two to check the Q&A and the chat. But I want to thank our presenters and our interpreters today. I think this was really helpful information, because it's really hard, even if you're in a situation where you're with, you have a child using these supports and these programs and plans. It's hard to know the difference because there are a lot of similarities. So I find this very helpful. And we have fact sheets that I can actually send and share with all of our attendees on communication styles for IEP and 504 plans. So we will be able to distribute all the materials that we had mentioned, and Kerry had put them into her presentation. So I will make sure to share those with everybody after this webinar is over. Okay, think that's it.
Ariel, can I just say, I wanted to thank Kerry and Ariel for putting this together, Mary for all her help with this, and Dr. Cole for being here and giving us your time today. I think that these opportunities are great for parents and for us to interact and, help to build skill sets and build information and knowledge about the process. It is kind of overwhelming at times when you have a child that has a need and you're trying to figure out the best solution. Even we at PIC, we're all parents with children, and we consult each other on a regular basis about our own children. So, we're absolutely here. Dr. Cole, your special ed team in your local school are there, and the communication, the team building is the way to go to make sure your child gets what they need. So thank you all for being here and for facilitating this.
Yes. And I will say, never be afraid to advocate for your child. That's for sure. Okay. All right. So we have our survey. If you guys, there's a barcode or scan for that, the QR code. And okay. Oh, and Mindy, who's sorry, I'm just reading one of the questions. Mindy just sent us a note about updates from DOE about needs page without goals for hearing access that she is going to share with me and then I can share. So I will also be able to send those out. And the slides and the transcript is available. We do record this. So anybody who would like to see this can go to our PIC website, or you can send me a note. You can send me an email and I can send you the recorded webinar for you to view. Okay. And that I think is a wrap. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate everyone who's here, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.